Imagine a day where children are guided and nurtured in a way that honors their unique humanness. A day where, instead of being expected to change in order to fit in, children can be met right where they're at. Welcome to Where They're Planted, a podcast for parents and care providers of unique children. Caring for a child with a developmental, emotional, or behavior challenge, a neurodiverse brain, or difficult early life experiences can be confusing and exhausting. On this podcast, we'll help your child flourish and strengthen their roots by helping you not only understand them, but also gain the skills to help them bloom where they're planted. We'll use brain science, nervous system tools, collaborative strategy sessions, and a deep understanding of the developmental process to create a fertile environment around your child in order to nurture their growth. I am your host, Jen Bluske, an occupational therapist with over 25 years of experience and a parent coach. My most closely held title, however, is that of a single mom of 2 thriving adopted kids, so I have walked this walk. I am truly excited to share, teach, and dive into these important topics on each episode. Welcome back to Where They're Planted. I am reflecting a little bit on how grateful I am to be starting this new year with you guys and really thinking about what this new year might look like for us. I have been at this podcast thing for about a year now, and it just brings me a lot of joy. It really fills me up to think about how the things I'm hearing from families and learning from families, how I can sit with you guys a couple times a month and really think through strategy and support and problem solving and questioning. And today's topic is one that I've been thinking about quite a bit. It's an overarching topic. Today we're going to talk about intentions as parents and values as parents. When I think about the new year and stepping back and really assessing a little bit what's working, what's not, what we hope for ourselves, what we hope for our kids, what we wish for in our parenting, I think that there's some power in thinking about intentionality. You know, life often feels like it's happening to us, but in reality, it's not. Through some intentionality and just really finding that quiet place in ourselves, we can really think about how we want to show up for our kids. We talk a lot here about our neurodivergent kids or our kids who are moving through life in a way that isn't maybe what we expected. And through it all, we're still showing up as parents with what we bring. And I think that there's some power in thinking through what is important to us to instill in our kids and really thinking about what we want our kids to remember about us. It's in those small interactions, it's in the sort of the micro interactions where we know that a lot of the learning and a lot of the character development and a lot of the values are being set. And so what do we want our kids to observe about us? How does what we do, how we respond, how we move through our lives impact their ultimate values as adults? And so today, I just want to have that conversation with you guys around taking a moment to step back and have some intentionality about, gosh, what are your intentions as a parent? Like, what do you hope happens this year? And that comes from being really grounded and rooted into our values. As we think about this topic and as you might be listening, there's a few ways to really do this. One is to just Google values and you'll get different lists of values charts and really sit with it and circle the ones that make sense and sit with your partner if you're partnered and figure out where those top ones are for you. Another way to do this is just in the quiet moments, which for many of us, there aren't a ton of quiet moments. So this is when you're in the shower. This is when you're driving in the car. This is when you're walking the dog. This is when you're doing dishes. In those quiet moments, really think about, like, I don't know, what's super important to me? How do I want to live? Maybe we're not in alignment with it. We're all on our own journeys to figure that out. But sometimes these values are incredibly clear to us, and sometimes we just haven't spent a ton of time of thinking about it. So when I think about values, it's interesting because in the parent coaching work I do, this is one of the first things I ask parents and that we work through together. And it is fascinating to me that each family unit has such different values that they raise to the top and that really guide how they want their children to be raised. And so, for example, one of the top values that I hear often are sort of a combination of values of respect and hard work and being very responsible, can be a collection of values that for some families are just very, very important. And so you might really ring true to that. You might ring true to the values of hard work, that being useful, that engaging with the world, productivity, respect. And if that's the case for you, then I challenge you to think about how we're not only teaching our children to do that, but how are we modeling that? How are we modeling respect? How are we modeling hard work? How are we modeling self-sufficiency in some ways? Another sort of combination of values that I sometimes hear a lot with families is the values of an exploration and free will, openness as a set of values. And gosh, when I see that one, right, you're going to be parenting quite differently than that first group I just talked about. You might really be modeling trying things that you might fail at. You might be modeling having your child be able to really say hard things to you in a way that maybe other parents might not embrace as much. You might be really putting your children in situations or putting your family in situations where there's a big unknown, right? These are the families who might go out on multiple day hiking trips and really like figure things out and explore around in a really open-ended way. So that's a set of values where we can embrace in order to support our children in order to hold those values. And so some of the things I like to consider when parents tell me the values that they have, because they're all fine, they're all right, they're all values. Mine are going to look different than yours, and yours are going to look different than the parents next to you, is, first of all, how are you showing up within those values? How are you showing the importance of it within your day-to-day life and in your day-to-day actions? And for a lot of us out there, we might say, I'm not, or, ooh, that's something that I haven't really thought about. And that's okay. It's okay to realign yourself back into what makes sense. I know in my own parenting journey, one of the things that I really wanted for my children was self-expression and autonomy, the ability to be really, truly be your own person. As I was on my parenting journey, or as I still am, periodically I noticed that I was doing for and not speaking up or doing things out of obligation in a way that wasn't in line with those values and not modeling what I really hope for my children to have. And so I was able to notice as I started living more in alignment to my values of self-expression, saying, man, I'm really frustrated because the house is a really big mess and I'm overwhelmed. Simple self-expression. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not judging anybody. I'm not dysregulating, just expressing that my children were able to step up and be able to express a little bit more freely and in a way that was healthy and maybe set boundaries a little bit more easily. They were modeling off of me living within my values. And so that's why we start here. As you think of 3, 4, usually no more than 5, or it gets a little overwhelming. Put them somewhere in a place this next few months, that's pretty easy to see. So, put them on the fridge in your kitchen, put them on a notes field or the front screen of your phone, put them on the bathroom mirror, and just the power of sort of intentionally seeing them, right? Just the power of noticing over and over again is a way that we can just begin to live them just a little bit more for our kids. And so I encourage you to give yourself grace around this. It's super incremental in order to really right line with our values and then really parent through them, right? Because all of our old chatter of how we were parented and our old chatter about, I need to do this for my child, or they're never going to be able to X, or they're never going to be able to Y, or they're going to keep doing Z, kind of gets in the way. And those things are important too. But again, if we can circle back to sort of that foundation, as parents, we're the roots. We're the tree roots for our kids who might be swaying around or all over the place. We're that root. We're that stable base that they come back to, no matter, again, where they are in life and what circumstances they're working through in development and in life and in how they live in this world. So the next piece that I want to think about when we're looking at a reset, a parenting reset at the beginning of the year here, is the power of intention. So, right, there's all the New Year's resolutions out there and all these like high, mighty hopes that we're all going to, lose the 10 pounds and our house is always going to be clean, all the things. That's not what I'm talking about in intentions. I think that, again, we as parents, we have a lot going on. It's hard. Parenting is hard. And so I think the power of intention and just thinking of ways that we hope to show up in micro ways is powerful. And actually, it takes some of the stress off of this end goal of like, once we're able to go to a restaurant and everybody's happy and nobody cries, then we will have made it. Well, I'm going to be honest to you. I have a 17 and 19-year-old, and I don't know that that's ever happened successfully in the way that it is in my head. But if the intentions are pure around my parenting, that's when I see the shift. So when we're talking about intentions as parents, we are not looking at some sort of magical end goal. We're not looking at something our child is going to do. We're talking about our own intentions. So some of the intentions that I offer to you as you sort of sit and think this through this year is, do you have an intention of having more joy with your children, right? And joy can look like a lot of things on the outside, but on the inside, it's that sense of delighting in our children, delighting with them about something. Is that an intention that matches for what you're really desiring in your parenting? Do you have an intention of meeting your children in a more regulated way, of showing up in just a little bit more grounded and regulated way when they come to you, maybe dysregulated or with distress or with high emotionality or with discomfort or with, the bigger, badder stuff of getting in trouble or things like that? Is that an intention that if I really intend to just show up as a more grounding force for my child as an intention this year? Do you have an intention of increasing attunement? So attunement is truly seeing your child. Attunement is noticing. It's the notice that happens right before we then co-regulate, or right before we then support a need to be met. So an intention of attunement might be, and this is actually one of mine, might be when my teenager walks in the room, while I always listen and respond, what if I put my phone literally down and out of my hand? Is that more attunement to my child? And will that help that child to be received a little bit more and then show attunement to others more? I don't know. Do you have an intention of more stillness where this society is just so busy? There's so much going on. And what I mean by stillness, again, is I don't mean quiet time after dinner every night. I don't mean that we're gonna, have reading time every day. I mean stillness in short, quiet moments together or stillness and short, quiet moments with ourselves. Again, these are the in-between times of our days. This is the in-between time of driving to work. This is the in-between time of walking through the parking lot to get to the store that you're going to. This is the in-between time of stillness in the activity of all of the daily tasks we need to do. There is a way to be still while you're doing the dishes. There is a way to have stillness while you're cooking the dinner. And do we have an intention of more stillness? Just sit on the chair for 30 seconds and just take a breath as a parent. I think that there's power in that intention of modeling stillness for our children, especially if they're sensitive beings in this world, because our world is very rarely still. Stillness has to come from within ourselves in order to feel it. It's going to be a pretty rare moment when our external world is still enough to sort of bring us into it. It's our job to do it for ourselves, and therefore it's our job to teach our kids how to do it. Do you have an intention of more routine, right? There's another intention that sometimes parents are really thinking about is, man, my life feels constantly chaotic. Like, can I find a little bit of marching order to my day, knowing that there's flexibility, and in order to help me feel a little more grounded? I know that is one of my intentions this year is routine. And I don't mean rigid routine. I mean something that helps me feel like I'm not always being caught off guard within my day. Routine of, maybe when I get home from work every day, stepping outside for 2 minutes, right? Maybe that's a little added routine that might just bring some known to the day. With our children, it might be a routine of listening to the same song on the way to school every day. It might be a routine of a special handshake that we do when they get home or on the way to the bus. It might be a routine of we always read a chapter book before bed. Again, I'm talking the micro things. I think that intention is powerful in that if we continue to remind ourselves, I really would like more stillness, we find those little moments in order to meet some of those intentions, those longings that we have as parents to shift. And so sometimes just the stepping back and looking at, man, this is how I'm parenting now. Is this how I want to do it? Is this making sense to me? Is it making sense for the child that I have? Does it feel right to me? And if it doesn't, we have the ability to intend something different and to think it through a little bit differently for ourselves. And I think really our kids are looking to us to be those examples, to be the example of how to be and what to do. And when I really think about meeting our kids where they're at, it's really about being that stable base in ourselves so that we can meet our kids where we're at, so that we can truly see them, because their experience, if we're a true stable base, is their experience. It's not tied up in our stuff. It doesn't have to be tied up in our stuff because we know what our values are. We know what our intentions are. We know that we're our own stable base in order to then scoop our children up or support them or offer them a lending hand or observe them and see them. And so that's the power of really thinking about this work as we go into the new year. And so I invite you in these first few weeks of the year to sit with some intentions for yourself and get some clarity around your values as a parent, and be curious about whether these things might be a shift in your family unit, in your relationship with your child, and in how you see your child. I think I'll leave it right there for today. Thank you guys so much for joining. I do want to let you know that we are working diligently on a group experience where families can come in and do some independent learning and then have a group experience with me in order to really start parsing out some of these skills that we're learning. We're hoping to have that online in March, so be ready. And that'll be at thrivingparentscollective.com. And I will also have that in the show notes as usual. And so if it's something that you're interested in, if you're looking for that collaborative, that collective, that group of like-minded parents where we can sit and think and learn together, make sure to sign up for our mailing list in order to be first to get the information.
Thank you so much.
Where They're Planted is a Lit Path Studios podcast and is produced by Jamie Gale and Jen Bluske. Music is by Gaston Reen and Pod 5. Thank you for loving your child right where they're planted.